Etienne, and to introduce him and pose insightful questions, we have on stage Laurie Kozlowski. Close? Good try. That's and previously the senior editor of the LA Times, looking at digital strategy, mobile technology, and emerging platforms, and previously a contributor to Entrepreneur magazine, various other things. She's now leading columnist for Forbes, focused on looking at startups, technology, and entrepreneurs. And I understand Forbes is quite popular here, even more prestigious than Pocket Gamer, I understand. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you guys. You've got mics working? Great. Take it away.
Okay, so hi. You know, a lot of what was said in the earlier session, interesting how the gaming space is really changing. We've seen in Nintendo and console really reshaping itself. The founder of Nintendo recently passed away. Zynga's stock is not doing great, and probably over the next 2 quarters will continue to stay in that same place. On the other side of that though, we recently saw King go through an IPO, and Supercell was purchased by SoftBank. So, first question is, what are you seeing in the landscape now, and how do you think gaming is really reshaping itself, particularly now?
No, it's actually super interesting because, to echo some of the things that Christian was talking about, the gaming business was untouchable a year ago from an investment perspective. And now it's getting hotter than hot again. And it's not only King filing for their IPO, and guessing that it will be around $5 billion, and the Supercell deal for $3 billion, but I think Caban just hit around at $700 or $800 million. And all these companies are fairly small. They're not 3,000 person companies. So I think what we're seeing is that more people are playing these games. Obviously it's gone from maybe 30 or 40 million people playing games in the US to maybe 100 million playing at least one game a year. And it's grandma, grandpa, cousin, nephew, niece. And it's games on the mobile side that are really entering the pop culture zeitgeist.
Kind of like just leading off of that, what do you think is different now about the mobile space of gaming versus games only living on social platforms or even console from back in the day? Like, is there anything particularly unique about it that kind of sticks out as something that's charging this?
I think the really smart companies are looking cross-platform, and I don't mean just on the mobile side, but continuing to work with the Facebook canvas on the web. So for the companies, you should look at mobile first, but it's great to have a Facebook presence on the web because it's so quick to iterate on. Like literally in minutes, you can make a feature change and do an A/B test on something to get valuable information, as opposed to with Apple where you have to submit like software, and then if you want to compare that, or I guess just in general, you should never have a business on one platform. And I know when I ran MySpace, a lot of businesses went by the wayside because we'd make a feature change, and there's major rules in Silicon Valley right now that they will not invest in a company that's just based on one platform.
Kind of jumping off of that just a little bit, what do you think Facebook's role is going to be in games going forward? Is there any other than it's central to what you just said, but
it's huge because it's the #1 customer acquisition source right now, both from a paid perspective. So if you look at if you're buying advertising to promote a game, Facebook is by far the most efficient place to do that because you can target your exact user demographic. It's all there for you. It's simple. You can target users that have purchased before. You can target users that have purchased puzzle games before. But again, the problem with that on the game developer side is that there's all this great supply out there, but it's also creating a ton of demand, which is going to drive the prices up.
do you think that, I know that SGN in particular has used big data, which is like this ephemeral term, but used correctly, it's actually really powerful. Do you think you can predict hits, or how's that helping you to leverage audiences by using?
Yeah, I think you mitigate your bad misses, is really what you do. So we look at it from the very beginning process. Before we greenlight a game, we have a huge checklist that we look at. We want to make sure it's a fun game mechanic, a proven game mechanic, one that works within our genre of games, so it very easily cross-promotes with our other games, so we can have a user playing 3 games instead of 4. And then if we hit like the 10 different checkboxes, then we'll go to a very quick prototype, see if that's fun, and if we think that's fun, then we will go all the way in on the game, and then we'll look at certain data points and have prescriptive measures to hit those data points.
What do you think that, being that there is all this kind of sea change, and I think last year people were still like reeling from the Zynga thing, but now people are excited, like what do you think that consumers want now? Do you think that's changed?
I just think there's more consumers that are playing games. I mean, people thought that they would never play a game before. It's like, what are you doing? I'm playing Candy Crush. You know, and it was the same thing with Angry Birds. Again, it's when I said it's entered the pop culture zeitgeist. They're games that everyone can easily understand. There's like a really clear first-time user experience. You don't have to study a game, and it doesn't take you an hour to get into it. It's just like you can easily get on the game, learn how to play it, and it's just a lot of fun.
Do you think that there's a future in this sort of wearable space? So we've seen this like sort of, in my opinion, weird trend toward more and more wearable mobile technology. How do you think that's going to affect the gaming space?
I think it's super early. I hadn't put on a pair of Google glasses until a few weeks ago. Have you worn them? Okay, yeah, it's a really weird experience, but it's actually super cool. And so I think there are opportunities in the future, and I think there will be for like augmented reality games with gesture-based movements with the game in front of you, where you can make your moves. I think that's super exciting. The big unknown is when that's going to happen. I think it's going to probably be still a year before Google Glasses or other technology similar to that actually goes to the market. And at that point, I think, I'm not sure what the price points are going to be, but I know that they do have a distinct plan of distribution, and I think that will be through retail stores. I also think that one of the cool things about the Google Glasses idea is that it's going to be mainly based on Android, which will make it easier for developers that already have Android games.
I mean, this is just random, but like, would you be playing a game in your glasses?
Yeah.
As you walk around, right?
Well, I don't know if you'd be walking around, maybe in your bedroom or something, until the glasses start looking a little bit cooler.
Yeah. So you mentioned the pop culture zeitgeist, and like we see things like Angry Birds and Candy Crush now. Like how, and I think some of the previous panelists referenced this. I think it's really difficult to tell what's going to become a big hit. Like Angry Birds, I mean, it's just, that doesn't appeal to me. It's just like that's out there, you know, but Candy Crush, you know, maybe off of the Candyland idea that people remember from a long time ago, like, but I'm kind of interested in maybe what you've seen, like what makes a big hit, you know, like, I mean, to reference like more legacy entertainment media, like, I think Disney knows what makes a big hit. They know like a cartoon formula and they follow that formula. Do you think games is similar, or that it's just like, who knows what the market's going to want?
Yeah, I mean, a great example would be Candy Crush. Again, it's part of our green lighting process. You're looking for a proven game mechanic. You're looking for great art. You're looking for a little bit of a new twist to that game mechanic. So Candy Crush didn't just come out of thin air. It came as an inspiration from Bejeweled, which has been around for 12 years. And so clearly people love Bejeweled, and there's a lot of different versions of Bejeweled. But they made it a move-based game. They made it with very polished art and candy and unique and interesting power-ups and in-app purchases. And so again, just those subtle changes and really great execution made it big, but it wasn't necessarily a new idea.
Someone also referenced earlier, you know, you have to make what you love and how important art is. Like, would you second that? Do you think that's true about the artists and the artistry? Or is it like, hey, if it's playable and random and people can figure out how to play it, then fine?
Yeah, let me say two things about it. First, I 100% agree with you have to make games that you love. And like Christian, we've made that mistake before too, sort of chasing what we think is going to be interesting in the future, but haven't made that mistake for a long time. And that's why we're primarily focused in the puzzle genre that has a deep narrative to it and great art. And for me, I agree with them. I think our game designers and our artists are way more important than I am. But by the same token, you do need an infrastructure in your company to really scale it. You need sophisticated media buying. You can't develop a company with 5 or 10 people that are just great artists. You need all the other stuff around it.
You talked about the importance of evergreen games, which I know that SGN makes a lot of. Can you talk about why that's, I mean, it seems obvious, but why that is something that's just important to keep going back to?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the past you've seen some of the games and some of the Zynga games that have a curve that go up and down like that. And so the whole notion of spending, 8 or 9 months on building a game and launching a game and seeing it die in 3 months just makes no sense at all. So really our strategy, again, and it's an overused term, but is games as a service. So once we release a game, it's launched, but it's not done like a shrink-wrapped console game. Our interpretation of games as a service is continue to add new content. We will double or triple the size of that team, create a franchise, add new levels to the game, perfect the levels, and continue to make it better and better. And you choose a game that, poker, for example, that's an evergreen game. People always play that. Monopoly is an evergreen game. Bingo is an evergreen game. But there's other puzzle games like Bejeweled could be an evergreen game as long as you continue to improve on it and add new content.
Do you think, what's the future of console? Like, just given that mobile wearables are up, but console in general is down compared to mobile gaming, what do you think is going to happen in that space?
I think the quality on those console games are so good. It's almost like watching TV. Those games have gotten so much better. I don't think they're going away. I think they just serve a different niche market. They may be distributed on other platforms in the future. In fact, I'm sure they will be. I just think it will continue to serve a more niche audience, but they're not going away.
So, this is a very LA question, even though we're in San Francisco. The idea of the second screen has been really interesting around mobile technology, in that entertainment companies like NBC and Disney have started to experiment with what games they can serve you on your mobile phone, your iPad, while you're watching a movie or TV. Do you think that, what do you see in that space as possibly making capital off of 2 screens if possible, even though it's difficult to engage people twice?
Right, so I think there's definitely leverage in taking a brand onto multiple screens into multiple mediums. So if you look at The Hobbit and Kabam's game, that did really well. Several other games, I think Gravity was doing pretty well. Some other games didn't quite do so well. I think the big challenge though is that if you want a game that's fully integrated, for example, with a television show, you have a showrunner and a writer from the television show, and they're planning the show from the very beginning. They know nothing about game mechanics and how to build a game, much less how to integrate it with a TV show. And then you have a game developer over here on the other side that knows nothing about making a television show. So I think they're better accompanying products as opposed to integrated products when you're actually watching the show. So they keep awareness up from the standpoint of a show going off the air and then people playing the game throughout the year or until the next film release comes out.
I know that SGN is still growing. Do you think that there's a perfect number of people that make a great gaming company, or is it kind of better, as Christian said earlier, to stay really tiny?
Yeah, I think Agile is great, but again, you do having 10 or 15 people in your company total makes it really difficult to get off the ground because A, you probably don't have a big cross-promotional audience to work with to launch a game. It makes it very difficult to launch a game. We all listen to the economic models of using a publisher. It just doesn't work at the end of the day. You can't make any money. So you have to have a certain infrastructure to do your advertising, media buying, your analytics, your business intelligence, those kinds of things. But those are shared services. Your actual game developers and artists and engineers, I think those teams work best when they start out really small, and then you get 90% of the way, and then you double their size.
Okay, so away from staff and back to consumers. What are you seeing in the U.S. market versus the global market? Like, where games are more of the social games that you're creating played here, or are they played in other countries, and why do you think that adoption is happening?
So I think there's two different questions. There's adoption, and then there's monetization. And monetization for us in US, UK, Australia, especially in Canada, tend to be way higher than the other countries. We have not focused heavily on localizing. I think it's something that we'd be looking very strongly at prioritizing in the next 12 months. And it's super interesting. Probably 60% of our revenue right now comes from those 4 countries.
5 minutes, okay. Should we go to questions? Yeah. Who has questions? Martine.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I know the answer to this. But so are you a third-party publisher these days?
So one of the original companies, so just a tiny bit of background, we're a roll-up. I've acquired 4 companies with the backing of Boston Ventures. The first company we acquired, Mindful, is a series of really, really simple arcade type of games. And there's maybe 2,000 of those in which we don't own any of them. But that is not a focus for us right now, other than it's got massive distribution and it just cranks out advertising dollars every month, which is nice to have a diversified revenue stream. But everything we're doing in the future, we make all of our own games, and that's our only focus. And our primary focus is in-app purchases with free-to-play model.
Yes.
So how important is cross-platform presence, for example, games on Android, iOS, Facebook, something else, as you look at the game?
Well, I think what's really important is to think about it before you start the game. So how will a game play on a small screen versus a big screen? What code will you use? Because if you develop natively for iOS, then you have to redevelop the game, almost like reshoot the movie or the television show for Facebook, Canvas, and for Android. So to think about it up front is really important. From our standpoint, again, we really like the Facebook Canvas because it sends free users to play on mobile also. You get users playing on multiple platforms, same user playing on multiple platforms. And it's really easy to experiment on the Facebook Canvas because there's no submission process. You can quickly make changes, it's easier to do tests, it's cheaper to buy media. But overall, it is an audience that is slowly going, or quickly going away.
Why?
Sorry?
Why? Why is it going away?
Oh, because there's a quick flight to mobile. Again, as someone mentioned before, people are using either their tablet or their mobile device as their primary unit to gather information and for entertainment.
And how do you balance that? Because it's less expensive to do it on Facebook, right?
So we have the technology that allows us to develop once and to port to all the different platforms. And so it makes it really easy for us. There's different screen renderings that you have to work with, and different touch versus click mechanisms that you have to customize, but the primary code works everywhere. And that's the real trick for us. And that's what we did 2 years ago that, for example, Zynga didn't do. And there are really high monetizing games were on Facebook, and they just could not be redeveloped on mobile successfully.
Yes.
In terms of pushing players from either Facebook to mobile or vice versa, where have you guys had the most success?
So, for one, it just happens. People are on Facebook at work. normally, and then they're on mobile when they're in transit or at home. The other really great thing is if you're integrated with Facebook, there are open graph calls, so when you're playing on mobile, it'll show up on Facebook.
Yeah.
And if you have a Facebook app, it'll show up in your bookmarks in mobile. So Facebook has some viral mechanisms built in, which will make you aware of the fact that you're playing games on both, and will encourage you to play games on all platforms.
Did the lady behind you still have a question?
So you mentioned you can switch users from Facebook Canvas to mobile. So does it mean your users switching from paying Facebook to paying like Apple or Google? Is it against the Facebook policy or?
No. So what happens is on Facebook, you're buying a certain number of R coins or whatever the R currency is. So that currency stays in your account, and you can use it when you're playing on mobile. But when you're playing on mobile and you want to buy more currency for your games, then you have to go through the App Store. So that's one of the big changes, is that Facebook is making less and less money on games in general from virtual currency, because when people are playing on mobile, they have to buy through the App Store or through Google Play. But they're making more and more money on mobile through advertising, because it's the main place to advertise. So I think the big challenge, again, for a lot of the mobile game developers is, how do you find alternate sources to acquire customers or for discovery? One of the things that we're experimenting with right now is real-time bidding. Again, getting into the data, and I don't want to bore you guys, but it's so important, some of the data points, where you buy a user, what kind of device it is, what carrier are they using, what time of day did you acquire the user, and isolating those variables to see what works and what hits your target cost per install versus your lifetime value of that user based on your certain perfect recipe of variables.
So for your mobile game, do you still recommend Facebook as the user acquisition source rather than other like ads channels?
Are you asking Facebook versus ad networks?
Yeah, ad networks on mobile platforms.
Yeah, generally ad networks on mobile platforms don't work because you'll do a test and the targeting just isn't good enough. So that's why we're layering in our own real-time bidding network, in which we can get that data that I was talking about, time of day, carrier, device, country, like any piece of data that we can get, crunch that data by cohort and figure out the best recipe, see pockets of value, and go big on that. So it takes a certain amount of sophistication, I think, to buy outside of Facebook. But right now, Facebook is really the best bang for their buck. But I got to tell you, it's the cost per install on Facebook has increased a great deal in the last 9 months.
So last question.
So you said that you use a system that allows you to easily port to mobile, and as a dev who's been working on Facebook, that's a really hard thing to do. It sounded like that was in your code base and not like a third-party service that you use?
It's a combination of both. And so you really have to think about, again, everything up front, like the graphics engine that you use, the particle engine and technology that you use, and then there's some off-the-shelf technology that you wrap around it.
Okay. All right. Let's have a big round of applause, please, for Chris.